Do this for just one day and watch 99% of your problems dissolve. Have you ever had one of those days where your mind feels like a crowded room full of shouting voices, stress, regret, overthinking, expectations, fear? Maybe you're chasing deadlines, worrying about relationships, or just feeling like life is slipping through your fingers. We've all been there. But what if I told you that you don't need to change your job, move to a mountain, or wait for some miracle to find peace? What if, just for one day, you tried something different? In the quiet heart of Buddhist wisdom lies a series of deceptively simple practices, no rituals, no dogma, just grounded, time-tested ways to reconnect with the present moment, release the grip of suffering, and return to what really matters. The surprising truth? You don't need to master these teachings for years. You only need one honest day of practice to start seeing transformation. This isn't a promise of instant perfection. It's an invitation. In this article, we'll explore 10 powerful yet practical steps inspired by Buddhist teachings. But more importantly, I'll walk you through how these teachings actually apply to real life, with personal insights and stories that show how even a single day of mindful living can shift your entire perspective. We'll talk about how to calm an anxious mind, how to stop chasing things that never satisfy, and how to face life with more grace, even when it's messy. You don't need more time. You just need more presence. Are you ready to give yourself that one day? Let's begin. Step 1. Stay focused and aware of the present moment. If you were to boil down thousands of pages of Buddhist philosophy into one practical sentence, it might be this: be here, now. Sounds easy, right? But how often are we actually present? When you're eating, are you really tasting the food? When someone's talking to you, are you listening or just waiting to reply? When you're resting, is your mind still racing ahead, solving problems that don't even exist yet? Modern life pulls our attention in every direction. We scroll through endless feeds, jump from task to task, and even in moments of stillness, our minds are elsewhere, replaying the past or rehearsing the future. The present moment slips away unnoticed. But Buddhism teaches that mindfulness, the art of being fully present, is the gateway to peace. It's not about ignoring your problems, but about showing up fully for what is actually happening right now. A story from real life. A friend of mine, let's call her Lena, was constantly overwhelmed. Between managing her job, taking care of her 2 kids, and supporting her aging parents, she never had a moment to herself. She would often break down crying in the bathroom, not because anything catastrophic had happened, but because the noise in her head had reached unbearable levels. One day, she tried something different. She set a 5-minute timer, sat on the floor, and simply breathed. Nothing fancy. No music. No app. Just breath. At first, her thoughts fought back. You're wasting time. You should be doing laundry. Don't forget that deadline. But she gently returned to her breath. And when the timer rang, she cried again, but this time, it was relief. For 5 minutes, she had been present. That one small moment reminded her of something sacred. Peace is not out there. It's right here. That moment changed everything. Lena didn't quit her job or fly to a retreat in Bali. She just kept returning, 5 minutes here, 3 minutes there, to the present. And gradually, her life shifted. Why the present moment heals. When we are present, we begin to see clearly. We stop being ruled by autopilot reactions and start responding with intention. We no longer let every thought drag us down a spiral of stress or regret. We learn to notice, this is just a thought. I don't have to believe it. Mindfulness, then, is the first medicine. It anchors us. Instead of asking, how do I fix everything? Which can feel crushing, we simply ask, what's happening right now, and how can I meet it with clarity and kindness? Whether you're stuck in traffic, washing dishes, or sitting in silence, the present moment always welcomes you home. Step 2. Learn to release your strong feelings of wanting or needing something. Desire is tricky. It whispers to us in the voice of hope, if I just get this one thing, I'll be happy. If I achieve this goal, everything will make sense. But here's the truth Buddhism gently reveals: desire is endless. It doesn't stop when you get what you want, it just finds something new to chase. This doesn't mean all desire is bad. It means that strong attachment to desire, that relentless feeling of "I can't be okay until," is what creates suffering. The Buddha called this tanha, or thirst. And as long as we're thirsty, we're never truly satisfied. The cycle of craving, a personal reflection. I once became obsessed with a job I thought would complete me. The salary was high, the title prestigious. I imagined how people would look at me differently, how my parents would finally be proud. I poured everything into the application. And when I didn't get it, I was crushed, not just disappointed, but shaken to my core. Who was I without that title? Without that validation? It took months to realize that my suffering wasn't because I didn't get the job. It was because I had wrapped my identity around wanting it so badly. I believed that not having it made me less. That's the trap of craving. It makes us forget that we were whole to begin with. Desire is not the enemy, attachment is. Buddhism doesn't ask us to stop wanting anything. That would be unrealistic. Instead, it invites us to hold our desires lightly, to recognize them, smile at them, and let them go when they no longer serve us. It teaches us to ask, is this desire bringing me closer to peace? Or pulling me deeper into suffering? This shift is powerful. When you stop chasing after things to feel worthy, you start discovering joy in what you already have. The shopping cart test. Next time you're shopping, online or in-store, pause before clicking buy now. Ask yourself, do I need this? Or am I trying to fill something inside me that feels empty? Most of us don't need more things. We need more presence, connection, and self-worth. I once left a cart full of things I didn't really need, just small things, but emotionally charged. Walking away from it felt like rebellion against my inner craving. That night, instead of feeling deprived, I felt strangely free. Releasing desire is not deprivation. It's liberation. Step 3. Be kind and understanding toward others. Kindness isn't a luxury. It's a necessity, especially when life feels heavy. In Buddhism, compassion, karu, and loving-kindness, metta, aren't just beautiful sentiments, they are powerful tools for transforming not only our relationships but our own inner world. Why? Because when we radiate understanding toward others, we dissolve the illusion of separation. We remember, we're all just trying to find peace in this messy, beautiful life. Kindness starts when it's hardest. It's easy to be kind to someone who's smiling at you. The real challenge and the real growth comes when you're kind to someone who's unkind, or when you're patient with someone who pushes your buttons. A few years ago, I had a neighbor who seemed determined to make my life difficult. Loud music at night. Complaints over the smallest things. It triggered every impulse in me to fight back or lash out. But something inside said, try something different. Instead of matching his energy, I began greeting him with a calm smile. I offered help one day when he was struggling with his groceries. Slowly, his energy shifted. He softened. Eventually, we talked. I found out he'd just gone through a divorce and was angry at the world. He didn't need another enemy, he needed a little grace. Understanding doesn't excuse, but it heals. This doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. Boundaries are essential. But when you lead with understanding instead of judgment, you open the door to healing, not just for others, but for yourself. Carrying resentment is like holding a burning coal and expecting the other person to get hurt. Sometimes, a soft word can resolve what years of argument never will. Kindness is contagious. Think about the last time someone truly saw you, listened to you without interrupting, offered a compliment without reason, gave you space to be fully yourself. How did that feel? Now imagine being that person for someone else. In a world constantly shouting, kindness is a whisper that echoes. Even small acts matter. Holding the door. Asking someone how they really are. Giving someone the benefit of the doubt. These tiny ripples create waves. Step 4. Grow your appreciation for the things you have in life. In a culture that constantly tells us we are not enough, not rich enough, not successful enough, not attractive enough, it's easy to overlook everything we already have. But Buddhism reminds us of a radical, life-altering truth. Gratitude is the beginning of true happiness. When we shift our focus from what's missing to what's already here, we stop living in scarcity and start living in abundance. The silent power of gratitude. I remember meeting an elderly monk in Chiang Mai, Thailand. He had no phone, no TV, no possessions beyond his robe, alms bowl, and a well-worn copy of the Dhammapada. And yet, I had never seen someone smile as much as he did. Curious, I asked him, "Are you ever lonely? Don't you wish you had more?" He chuckled gently and said, "More? I have the breath in my lungs, the sun on my skin, the sound of the birds. What else could I need?" That simple answer humbled me deeply. I had so much, a home, friends, books, a warm bed, but I often forgot to feel thankful. I was always moving toward the next thing. That monk, on the other hand, had mastered the art of contentment. A simple practice that changes everything. Want a practical way to rewire your mind for appreciation? Start a gratitude journal. Each evening, write down 3 things you're grateful for, nothing fancy. It could be a cup of warm tea, a kind message from a friend, that moment of silence before the world wakes up. You'll be amazed at how this tiny practice can shift your mindset from lack to love. Another powerful technique? Mindful appreciation. The next time you're eating, don't rush. Savor each bite. Think about the people who made that meal possible, the farmers, the transporters, the cook. Gratitude deepens when you see the invisible hands that support your life. Gratitude is a remedy to comparison. Gratitude also heals one of the greatest thieves of joy, comparison. We scroll through filtered lives on social media, thinking we're behind. But the moment we return to our own lives, our own path, we realize we're not behind. We're on our way. And there's so much beauty right where we are. Gratitude doesn't mean you stop striving. It means you stop suffering in the process. It means you can be fully alive now, even as you move forward. Step 5. Accept that nobody is perfect and embrace your own flaws. Let this sink in for a moment. You don't have to be perfect to be at peace. In fact, chasing perfection may be the very thing standing between you and the life you want to live. Buddhism teaches us to stop striving for some polished version of ourselves and instead to embrace the raw, real, and beautifully imperfect human we already are. Perfection is a mirage. Have you ever looked back at old photos, perhaps from a time when you thought you were not good enough, and realized, I looked fine. I was doing okay. Why couldn't I see it then? That's the problem with perfectionism. It's always dangling just out of reach. It tells us we'll be enough someday, when we're more successful, more attractive, more spiritual. But someday never arrives. What if you stopped waiting? A personal turning point. I used to struggle with imposter syndrome. No matter how much I accomplished, a voice inside kept saying, "You're not enough. You're just faking it." I hid my insecurities behind achievements, thinking that if I just worked harder, the voice would disappear. But it never did. What changed things wasn't more success. It was a quiet evening, sitting alone, when I finally whispered to myself, maybe I'm already enough, even with my doubts, my wounds, and all the messy parts of me. That was the beginning of healing. Flaws are not failures, they're features. Buddhism doesn't expect perfection. The Buddha himself never taught that we must be flawless. Instead, he encouraged honesty, humility, and self-compassion. Our flaws are not signs of failure, they're signs of being human. When you embrace your imperfections, you also develop compassion for others. You stop expecting people to be perfect, too. And that creates space for real connection, for forgiveness, for love. Try this practice. Next time you catch yourself in self-criticism, pause and ask, would I speak to a friend this way? If not, speak to yourself the way you would to someone you love, gently, with kindness, and a willingness to see beyond the surface. You're not meant to be perfect. You're meant to be real. And being real is where the magic begins. Step 6. Find balance and avoid extremes in your lifestyle. If you've ever felt like you're swinging between burnout and boredom, chaos and control, you are not alone. One of the most powerful and often overlooked Buddhist teachings is the middle way, a path of balance, moderation, and harmony. Buddhism doesn't advocate for a life of deprivation, nor does it encourage blind indulgence. Instead, it invites us to live in a way that honors sustainability over spikes, peace over pressure, and clarity over constant chasing. Why we struggle with balance? We live in a world of extremes. Work 14 hours a day, then crash into a weekend binge. Diet hard, then swing into comfort food chaos. Go all in on goals, then abandon them entirely when we burn out. Why? Because we think happiness comes from more productivity, more excitement, more success. But real peace rarely shouts. It whispers. And you only hear it when you're living from a place of balance. A story, The Musician and the String. There's a famous story about the Buddha speaking with a musician. He asked, "What happens if the string of your instrument is too tight?" "It will snap," the musician replied. "And what happens if it's too loose?" "It won't play." The Buddha smiled, then tuned it until it's just right. This is the essence of the middle way. Finding your personal just right. Balance looks different for everyone. For you, it might mean setting boundaries at work so your mental health doesn't suffer. Taking rest days seriously instead of feeling guilty for slowing down. Allowing joy without needing to earn it through suffering. Avoiding spiritual perfectionism, where you pressure yourself to always be calm, always be mindful, always be good. Balance is a practice, not a place. You don't arrive at balance once and for all, you keep coming back to it, like a compass guiding you home. Try this, the daily balance check-in. At the end of each day, ask yourself, did I move my body? Did I rest enough? Did I connect with someone I care about? Did I do something meaningful? Did I allow myself stillness? If something feels way out of alignment, gently adjust tomorrow. The goal isn't perfection, it's sustainability. Because a life in balance isn't just more peaceful. It's more livable. Step 7. Share what you have with others and be generous. If mindfulness is the heart of Buddhism, then generosity is its hands. In a world wired for accumulation of wealth, knowledge, attention, it can be radical to ask, what can I give, instead of what can I get? But this simple shift from grasping to giving has the power to transform not only the lives of others but the very essence of our own. Giving isn't about how much you have, it's about how open your heart is. You don't need a fortune to be generous. You don't need grand gestures or public applause. You just need presence, willingness, and compassion. Sometimes the most life-changing gifts are listening without interrupting, offering your time to someone who feels unseen, sharing a story that helps someone feel less alone, giving without expecting anything in return. True generosity is not transactional, it's transformational. A story from a cold morning. I once saw a young woman on a subway platform hand her scarf to a shivering older man. He didn't ask. She just noticed. No fanfare. Just warmth, literally and metaphorically. The look on his face wasn't just gratitude. It was recognition. It was as if, in that moment, the world had whispered to him, "You still matter. Someone sees you." That scarf probably cost her $10. The dignity it restored? Priceless. Why generosity frees you? Buddhism teaches that generosity is not about loss, it's about liberation. When you give freely, you loosen your grip on fear and scarcity. You begin to trust in the interconnectedness of all beings. You stop asking, "What if I don't have enough?" and start realizing, we already have enough, together. Generosity breaks the illusion of separation. It reminds us that we are not isolated islands, but waves on the same ocean. A generosity practice to try today. Think of one thing, big or small, you can give today. Maybe it's a kind message to someone who's struggling, donating to a cause that aligns with your values, offering your time to someone who needs help moving, listening, or healing, sharing your skills, maybe tutoring, mentoring, or just teaching someone how to cook. Then give it with no strings attached. Feel the joy that rises, not because you're superior, but because you're connected. Step 8. Develop a caring and gentle attitude toward yourself and others. In a world that rewards toughness, speed, and success, gentleness can feel like weakness. But in truth, it's one of the most courageous and revolutionary acts you can commit to. Buddhism teaches that compassion is not just for others, it must begin with yourself. Without self-compassion, your kindness to others is just a performance. With it, it becomes truth. Why self-gentleness feels so hard? Most of us are our own harshest critics. We beat ourselves up for not being productive enough, smart enough, good enough. We carry around invisible scorecards, always judging, always falling short. But what if the voice in your head wasn't a drill sergeant, but a wise and loving friend? Imagine waking up and instead of thinking, you're already behind, you heard, you're doing your best, and that's enough today. How different would your life feel? A real moment of gentle awakening. A woman I once coached was battling burnout. Every day, she pushed herself past exhaustion, trying to be the perfect employee, the perfect mother, the perfect everything. She confessed through tears, "I don't remember the last time I was kind to myself." We started small. One affirmation a day. One kind action toward herself, a nap, a bath, a walk without guilt. Within a month, her entire energy changed. She was still busy, but no longer broken. Because gentleness doesn't make you weak. It restores you. Being gentle with others starts with listening. We often rush through conversations, waiting to respond, or trying to fix people. But sometimes, the kindest thing we can do is simply be present. Hear them. See them. Let them feel safe enough to be imperfect with us. Kindness isn't always loud. It can be a hand on the shoulder. A quiet "I'm here." A message that says, "You don't need to be okay for me to love you." Forgiveness is gentleness in action. One of the highest forms of gentleness is forgiveness, toward others, yes, but also toward ourselves. Carrying shame and resentment only deepens wounds. Letting go, genuinely, with love, is what allows healing. And forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing. It means you no longer allow pain to poison your peace. Practice the loving kindness meditation. Close your eyes. Take a breath. Repeat softly in your heart. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Then, extend it outward, to someone you love, then someone neutral, then someone difficult. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. This ancient practice is like water for dry ground. It softens everything. Step 9. Look for knowledge and understanding in everything you do. Life is the greatest teacher if we're willing to listen. Buddhism teaches that wisdom isn't reserved for books, gurus, or mountaintop retreats. It's everywhere, in the silence between two breaths, in the conflict you'd rather avoid, in the moments that hurt and the ones that heal. When you adopt the mindset of a student of life, everything becomes meaningful. Every moment becomes an opportunity to wake up. Beginner's mind, seeing with fresh eyes. In Zen Buddhism, there's a concept called Shoshin, or beginner's mind. It's the idea that the more you know, the more important it is to remain humble, curious, and open, like a beginner. A master once said, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. When we let go of needing to be right, wise, or certain, we open ourselves to true understanding. We begin to see life not as a problem to solve, but as a mystery to live. A personal shift, learning from a mistake. Years ago, I made a decision that hurt someone I cared about, not intentionally, but through carelessness. I spent weeks justifying it to myself. But one morning, I asked, "What is this here to teach me?" The answer was hard: you need to listen more. Slow down. Take responsibility without self-defense. That lesson stuck. It made me a better friend, a better human. And I never would have learned it if I had just rushed to move on. Let life teach you every day. Want to live this principle? Try these small practices. Ask, what is this teaching me, whenever you are in discomfort, physical, emotional, or spiritual. Engage with different perspectives. Read books outside your comfort zone. Listen to people whose views challenge you. Reflect before reacting. Pause. Ask, what deeper layer am I not seeing yet? Every interaction is a mirror. Every challenge is a teacher. Every mistake is a doorway. Wisdom is not just knowledge, it's integration. It's not about how much you know, it's about how much you embody. You can read every spiritual book ever written, but if you yell at your partner when you're frustrated, there's still learning to do. There always is. So let your life be your classroom. Let curiosity replace criticism. Let wonder replace judgment. Step 10. Be patient with yourself and others, even when things are difficult or slow. We live in a world that worships speed. Faster results. Quicker success. Instant healing. But the truth is, the most meaningful growth in life happens slowly, quietly, and often invisibly, like roots growing underground. Buddhism teaches us the deep power of patience, not as passive waiting, but as active presence. A calm strength. A willingness to stay, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Why patience is a form of love. Impatience usually comes from fear that we're not good enough, not progressing fast enough, not fixing things quickly enough. But patience says, you're allowed to take your time. You're allowed to grow slowly. You're allowed to heal at your own pace. That is love. When you're patient with yourself, you become more patient with others. And when you're patient with others, you offer them the space to unfold, not forcefully, but naturally. A story from the garden. A friend once planted a tree in her backyard. Every week she watered it, nurtured it. But after 2 months, there was no visible growth. Frustrated, she thought she'd done something wrong. Then one day, she looked beneath the soil and discovered that the roots had been growing all along, deep and strong. That's what had taken so much time. 2 months later, the tree burst through the surface. Today, it offers shade and fruit. Growth may be silent, but it is never wasted. Patience in everyday life. Being patient doesn't mean giving up. It means giving space. Space for your mistakes to become lessons. Space for your relationships to evolve. Space for your body to heal. Space for your soul to breathe. Whether you're recovering from grief, learning a new habit, or waiting for clarity in your life, it's okay to move slowly. Try saying to yourself, I trust the process. I'm allowed to be unfinished. I am still becoming. Try this practice. Next time you feel frustrated, whether with yourself, someone else, or life's timing, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Then ask, what am I rushing? What would change if I gave this more space? Can I meet this moment with gentleness? You'll be surprised at how often the answer isn't to push, but to soften. Conclusion: one day is all it takes to begin again. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You don't need to wait for a better time, more motivation, or perfect conditions. All it takes is one day of presence, of gentleness, of mindful choices. One day to slow down, let go, show kindness, appreciate what you have, and trust the unfolding of life. Will all your problems disappear instantly? No. But something far more important will happen. Your relationship with your problems will change. And that changes everything. So today, try it. Not forever. Just for one honest, intentional day. Let this be the day you stop chasing and start living.